The Young and the Restless spoilers shock. Here's an expanded and dramatic narrative based on the plot points, focusing on Nate's growing suspicions, Damian's manipulative tactics, and the brewing family tension as Devon becomes determined to uncover the truth. A brother's doubts. Nate had always been a man of reason, someone who valued logic and evidence above all else. When Damian appeared out of nowhere, claiming to be his long-lost brother, Nate couldn't help but feel a pang of unease. There was something too convenient, too polished about Damian's arrival. And as time went on, Damian's reckless behavior only deepened Nate's suspicions. From wild parties to public scandals, Damian seemed determined to tarnish Nate's reputation by association. For someone who claimed to want to reconnect with his family, Damian showed little respect for the values Nate held dear. Nate had had enough. "You want to prove your family?" Nate said one evening, his voice firm. "Then let's settle this once and for all. A DNA test. No more questions, no more doubts." Damian's alarm when Nate delivered the ultimatum. Damian's charming facade faltered for the first time. He tried to laugh it off, but the tension in his voice betrayed him. "Come on, Nate," Damian said, forcing a grin. "We don't need a test to prove we're brothers. Amy's already vouched for me. Isn't that enough?" But Nate wasn't budging. "I want proof, Damian. If you're really my brother, you shouldn't have a problem with that." Panic set in as Damian realized the walls were closing in. He needed to act fast, and he couldn't do it alone. Amy's desperate plan. Damian turned to Amy, his trusted confidant and partner in crime. Amy had been instrumental in crafting Damian's backstory, weaving together a narrative that painted him as the long-lost sibling everyone wanted to believe in. Now, their plan was in jeopardy. "We need to stop this," Damian said, pacing the room. "If Nate gets that test done, it's over." Amy nodded, her mind racing. "We can't let it happen." "But you're going to have to use that silver tongue of yours, Damian. Convince Nate to drop this. Appeal to his emotions. Remind him that family isn't about blood, it's about trust." Damian sighed, rubbing his temples. "Nate doesn't trust me. That's the whole problem." "Then make him," Amy said sharply. "You're good at this, Damian. You've fooled everyone else. Nate will be no different." A family meeting. Damian and Amy arranged a meeting with Nate, hoping to persuade him to abandon the DNA test. Damian donned his most disarming smile as he approached his older brother. "Nate," he began, his tone warm and conciliatory, "I know I've made mistakes since I got here. But that's just me trying to figure out my place in all this." Nate crossed his arms, unimpressed. "Your mistakes have cost me, Damian. You've embarrassed me, damaged my reputation. I don't think you understand what being a part of this family means." "I do," Damian insisted, his voice cracking slightly for effect. "That's why this hurts so much. I want to be part of your life, but this DNA test, it feels like you're questioning my integrity. I thought family was supposed to trust each other." Amy chimed in, her voice calm and measured. "Nate, I was there when Damian found out about his connection to you. I saw the joy, the hope in his eyes. Do you really need a test to confirm what's already in your heart?" For a moment, Nate hesitated. The weight of their words pressed against his resolve. But before he could respond, a new voice entered the conversation. Devon's determination. Devon, who had been listening from the doorway, stepped into the room. "Actually, I think the test is a good idea," he said, his tone firm but non-confrontational. Damian's jaw tightened, and Amy's expression hardened. "Why?" Amy asked, forcing a smile. "Isn't it enough that we're all here, trying to rebuild this family?" Devon shook his head. "Damian showed up out of nowhere, and he's done nothing but stir up trouble since he got here. I'm happy to have a brother, but if he's going to be part of this family, I need to know he's telling the truth." Damian forced a laugh, though it sounded hollow. "You don't trust me either?" "It's not about trust," Devon said, his eyes narrowing. "It's about clarity. If you're really who you say you are, then you shouldn't have a problem proving it. The truth unravels as Damian and Amy left the meeting. Their carefully crafted facade began to crumble. They're not going to back down, Damian said, his voice tight with frustration. Devon's digging into everything. It's only a matter of time before he finds out the truth. Amy placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression hard. Then we need to stay ahead of them. If the DNA test happens, we'll figure out a way to make sure it goes in our favor. And if Devon keeps pushing, we'll deal with him too. The question of timing as tensions escalated, the family dynamic grew more strained. Nate was determined to uncover the truth, Devon was quietly investigating Damian's background, and Damian and Amy were scrambling to maintain their lies. The question loomed over everyone, who was Damian really? And why had he appeared at this particular moment? The answers, when they finally came to light, would change everything, for better or worse. This expanded narrative heightens the intrigue and tension between the characters, exploring their motivations and setting the stage for a dramatic revelation. Let me know if you'd like to expand further on any specific plotline or character arc. The cracks in the facade. Amy paced nervously in the small hotel room where she and Damian had been meeting in secret. Her usual air of confidence had been replaced by a palpable anxiety. Damian, lounging on the sofa with a drink in hand, seemed far too relaxed for her liking. "You don't seem to understand the seriousness of this," Amy snapped, her voice low but sharp. "If that DNA test comes back negative, it's over. We're done." Damian smirked, taking a sip of his drink. "Relax, Amy. We've handled worse than this. Besides, I've got Nate wrapped around my finger." "No, you don't," Amy hissed, her frustration boiling over. "Devon's onto you, and Nate listens to him. If Devon convinces Nate to go through with this, we're finished. Do you understand that?" Damian's expression darkened, the smirk vanishing from his face. "Then we make sure the test doesn't happen," he said firmly. "One way or another." Devon's growing doubts across town. Devon sat with Nate in his office, reviewing the events of the past few weeks. Damian's erratic behavior and reluctance to prove his claims didn't sit well with Devon. "Doesn't it bother you?" Devon asked, leaning forward in his chair. "That Damian is so against taking the test?" Nate sighed, rubbing his temples. "Of course it does. But he keeps saying it's about trust, about proving we're a family in ways that don't involve science." Devon shook his head. "That's a load of nonsense, and you know it. If he has nothing to hide, there's no reason to avoid the test. Unless," he trailed off, his expression hardening. "Unless what?" Nate prompted. "Unless he's lying," Devon said bluntly. "I've seen people like Damian before. Smooth talkers who think they can charm their way out of anything. He's hiding something, Nate. I can feel it." Damian's resistance when Nate approached Damian again about the DNA test. Damian turned on the charm, trying to mask his unease. "Nate, come on," he said with a disarming smile. "We're brothers. Why do we need some lab test to tell us what we already know?" "Because I need the truth," Nate replied firmly. "If we're brothers, you shouldn't have a problem with this. So why do you?" Damian hesitated, scrambling for an answer. "It's just insulting," he said, feigning hurt. "I've been trying to build a relationship with you, and now you're treating me like some kind of con artist." Nate's gaze didn't waver. "If you're not a con artist, then prove it." Amy's desperation. Meanwhile, Amy was working behind the scenes to salvage their scheme. She knew that Damian's refusal to take the test would only make things worse. She decided to confront him directly, her frustration boiling over. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," Amy said, cornering Damian in their meeting spot. "If you keep resisting, you'll make them even more suspicious." "I'm not letting them test me," Damian snapped. "That's non-negotiable." "Then we need a backup plan," Amy said, her voice tight. "If they find out the truth, we're out of options." "Do you want to go back to nothing?" Damian's jaw clenched, but he didn't respond. Amy pressed on, her voice softening. "You're good at this, Damian. You can turn this around. But you have to play it smart." Devon's investigation. While Damian and Amy scrambled to maintain control, Devon quietly launched his own investigation. He dug into Damian's past, tracing his steps and looking for anything that didn't add up. The more he uncovered, the more questions he had. He discovered inconsistencies in Damian's story, details that didn't line up with what he claimed about his childhood or his supposed connection to Nate's family. The picture Damian had painted was beginning to unravel, and Devon was determined to get to the bottom of it. The confrontation. Devon's doubts finally boiled over during a tense family meeting. "Why don't you just take the test, Damian?" Devon asked, his tone calm but insistent. "If you have nothing to hide, it should be easy." Damian shot him a glare. "I don't have to prove anything to you." "No, you don't," Devon agreed. "But if you want to stay in this family, you do. Because I'm not going to let you manipulate Nate or any of us." Nate, caught between the two, looked at Damian expectantly. "He's right. If you want to be part of this family, you have to take the test. Otherwise, I don't know how I can trust you." Damian's carefully constructed facade cracked for a moment, a flicker of panic crossing his face. Amy quickly stepped in, trying to defuse the situation. "Nate, Devon, this is getting out of hand," she said. "We're family. Isn't that enough?" But her words fell on deaf ears. The Newman brothers had made up their minds, and nothing would stop them from finding out the truth. The truth approaches. As the pressure mounted, Damian and Amy found themselves backed into a corner. Their alliance, built on lies and manipulation, was beginning to crumble. Damian's charm and Amy's cunning could only carry them so far. The DNA test was no longer just about proving Damian's identity, it was about uncovering the secrets he and Amy had worked so hard to keep buried. And when the results came out, the fallout would change everything. This narrative builds on the tension between the characters, highlighting Damian and Amy's desperation to maintain their charade while Nate and Devon close in on the truth. Let me know if you'd like further twists or developments.